We're all here. We'll call this February meeting of the Industrial Building Authority together. Welcome all of you or anyone who's come in since the last meeting. Note that we do have a quorum present. Chairman Austin is away today on some legislative issues, so I'm going to take over for him. First item of business is approval of minutes from the January 21st, 2015 meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries. We also have the February 9th special meeting minutes. Do those need to be approved? Not on the agenda, but you
Yes.
received those by email
Yes.
earlier. Do I have a motion on those, please, or any discussion on them?
Does it need a motion to add them to the agenda?
You could, since you're on the agenda, email it.
Okay, I make a motion, we put that on the agenda since I think it's in the originally left off.
Second.
Have a motion and a second on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's added to the agenda. Now, any discussion on those minutes?
Make a motion to approve.
Got a motion approved by Chairman Austin,
I'll second.
second by Mayor Deep. Okay. All in favor, please. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. So we have the minutes. Also, you received the financial statements by email several days ago. Any discussion on the financial statements? If not, seek a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Motion to approve by Chairman Austin. A second, please.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. So now to reports and updates. I'll give the first one on the Greater West Georgia Joint Development Authority. We had our first meeting of the year on January 29th at the Burson Center over in Carrollton. A lot of attendees. The issue of discussion hinged on branding the region as opposed to branding counties as we have done more or less individually. And had a speaker in on this subject, and he stressed the importance of that the site survey and site development people were looking more now for a regional approach as opposed to a county by county approach, and that we were, let's say, leading the way on that in the state of Georgia, which I thought was pretty good. We also approved the budget for a new website and a company to do that, and that should be up and running soon. The reports on the different counties, all showing reasonably good growth, particularly Truth County with suppliers coming in for the Kia plant. An interesting thing that Carroll County is doing is their economic development organization has given $250,000 to a venture called the Tinker Box. And this is an engineering entrepreneurial location in the Burson Center where different types of tools that engineering students or STEM students would need would be able to come in and have access to this. So more of a think tank for smart kids, let's put it that way, engineering students. So report from the chamber, Carolyn?
Our leadership called-in class will have their government day tomorrow down at the Capitol. We are working with one of our manufacturers. They hire temporary help a lot during the summer months, and they were hiring through a staffing temp. And so what the chamber has put together for them is to hire students from Chattahoochee Tech, Georgia Highlands, and KSU for those temporary jobs during the summer months, and giving them an opportunity to work. So working on that, we have our governmental affairs is keeping tabs on House Bill 170. March the 5th, Georgia Power Luncheon, we're having agricultural Commissioner Gary Black is the speaker. That same day, we have about 100 10th, 11th, and 12th graders that will be shadowing a business that they are interested in, or a career path that they are interested in. And so those 100 students will also be guests at our luncheon with their mentor that day. So those are the things coming up.
Okay. Next agenda items are the reports from the executive director. Got several of these, Blake, starting with the film studio.
Yeah, the film studio is very, very active. If you haven't been by there in the last few days, the folks from Fake Off have moved back in and are starting the shooting of season 2, which will be 8 episodes. We've had conversations with them all week this week about parking. They're expecting to have somewhere around 300 to 400 people there during their main shoot days, which will at least be 8 main shoot days, because they have 8 episodes that they're shooting, possibly more than that. So we're looking at some different options, possibly using some parking lots in some other locations and shuttling people over with some vans. But we certainly don't have quite enough parking there on site to accommodate that large number of folks. This show being a competition show, you know, they have a large number of people who sit in the crowd, in the audience for the show. So it's more than just the actors and more than just the cameramen and the lighting men and the sound folks. It includes also the crowd, the audience. So it is a large number of people who will be there. I also sent out to you earlier in the week the hold report. It looks like we have about 4 shows that have a hold for May. Fake Off will be there through the first week of April is where they're scheduled. Right now they're about 9 days behind. With the weather that we've got coming in tomorrow, some of the weather next week looking kind of questionable, I suspect that they're going to probably be at least a week or 2 weeks over schedule in getting out of the studio. So currently they're scheduled to get out the first week of April. It's probably going to be the second or third week of April, so we're looking at the 1st of May for the next opportunity for someone to come in. As you know, we can't push them too close together because we have to have time for them to tear down and get everything shipped out and us get the place cleaned back up before the next group comes in. So we want to make sure we accommodate some time for that. Wanted to mention that the studio is still operating in black for FY15. That is fantastic. Thrilled to death to have those numbers in the black. So if anybody's got any questions on the film studio, we'll be glad to address those. If not, we'll move on to the corporate hangar. The corporate hangar is is nearing completion. Really, all we're waiting on at this point in time is a pump that's used for the sprinkler system that's on back order. It looks like the pump's not going to be here until probably the middle of March. So that's kind of our critical path item right now, is getting that pump in. So met with the contractors, I guess it was Monday. I met with the contractors out on the site. They're getting ready to pave the parking lot. They're getting ready to finish up the finish on the floor, on the interior. We put in a request yesterday for gas meters so that we can go ahead and get the heaters turned on inside the facility. So everything is coming together very, very nicely with the hangar. And hopefully we can get that pump in middle of March. By the end of March, we'll be able to get a CO on the building and start hopefully getting someone in there to operate in that building. Moving on to the Dallas Industrial Park zoning. The zoning for the Dallas Industrial Park, the additional 10 acres that we're adding into the Dallas Industrial Park, was originally scheduled for next week. It looks like that's going to be postponed till next month. Some of the paperwork, there were some questions about some of the paperwork. I think City of Dallas is a little bit short-staffed right now, so they asked if it'd be okay if we push it back a little bit. There's nothing pushing us as far as the schedule is concerned, so instead of trying to push them to get it done and force it to zoning next week, we said, yeah, that'd be fine. We'll go ahead and let it slip to next month and just take care of it then. That's about it on Dallas Industrial Park. The Paulding Aerospace Alliance. Paulding Aerospace Alliance, we had our initial 2015 meeting about 2 weeks ago. Brought the group back together. We had not met as an official group since really the first part of 2014. So it had been a while since we had gotten together. There's been quite a number of changes amongst the members of the Paulding Aerospace Alliance in terms of staff, personnel. So we had some new faces there, so it was great to meet those folks and get up to speed with them on things they've got going on with the different companies. You know, I'm thrilled to report to you that all of our aerospace companies continue to thrive. They're all doing very, very, very well. As a matter of fact, two of them are on the verge of landing some rather large contracts, and if they do, then we see some expansion potential for those two companies. In addition to the things that we typically talk about with the Aerospace Alliance, having to do with lean initiatives and other things like that, which help them out with their businesses and taxes and things like that. Big topic a couple of weeks ago was the Air Expo. Hopefully you remember that with the last air show in 2013, the Paulding Aerospace Alliance set up a pretty large tent and did what they called the Air Expo, where each one of them went in and they kind of set up an area that demonstrated what their companies do and how they operate, the kind of types of parts that they make, and things like that. The members of the Paulding Aerospace Alliance really want to ramp that up this year. They want to include other businesses other than just aerospace companies, so they're opening it up to some other manufacturers in the community to come into the tent with them and be able to show what their capabilities are, the types of products that they manufacture. And in addition to that, they're really wanting to have a presence this year of the educational institutions. So we're talking with Georgia Tech, we're talking with Georgia Highlands, Chattahoochee Tech, Kennesaw, about them coming into the tent with the Aerospace Alliance and having a presence there as well. So the whole mindset there is we want the kids who come to the air show who are excited about airplanes and excited about the technology there to come into the Air Expo, come into the tent, be able to see the really very cool things that these companies make and the incredible capabilities that these companies have, and then be able to point them to the other end of the tent and say, you know, if you're interested in doing something like this, if you're interested in designing this part or building this part or having a job that somehow relates to what we do, then you need to walk down to the other end of the tent down there and talk to the folks from Georgia Tech or talk to the folks from Chattahoochee Tech or Kennesaw or whatever it may be. So we're wanting to tie all that together this year so that the Air Expo is not just a facility that shows off the capabilities of those companies, but it's a tent and a location where we can hopefully get the kids excited about being able to do the kind of work that these companies do. In economic development, you know, it's tough to bring in new businesses, and what a lot of people don't realize is that most of the growth that occurs in most communities is through expanding the existing businesses. So we want to make sure that we do everything that we can do to help our existing businesses and our existing aerospace businesses, and the Air Expo is just a part of that. I will mention that, go ahead. Yes, sir.
You've had, I believe now, 2 camps.
Yes.
Would that be a good place for that camp personnel or whatever to come and be ready to talk to kids about?
Good idea.
It absolutely is, and what the chairman's referring to is I sit on the board of the West Georgia Youth Science and Technology Center, which is housed out of the University of West Georgia. It is an entity that promotes math and science, essentially, education at the elementary and middle school levels. And the West Georgia Youth Science and Technology Center covers Paulding County, Polk, Haralson, Carroll. I believe there's 7 counties total, but it's basically these northwest Georgia counties that it covers. And we did have a board meeting last week, and we're talking with them about the Air Expo and their participation and what they can do. We're also talking to them about the next Aviation Aerospace Day that they're gonna do at the airport. They also have another event they're gonna do over at New Hope Elementary. So it's an interesting thing. Sammy McClure asked me, I guess about 3 years ago, if I would come sit on that board. And at the time, they really weren't doing a whole lot in Paulding County. Since then, Dawn Hudson from the school system has joined me on that board. Sammy has retired, as most of you know. And really, we've been able, between Dawn and I, to get a lot more participation and a lot more events planned in Paulding County, and it's working out really, really well for us. And the folks at West Georgia Youth and Science Technology Center are thrilled about it as well, because Paulding County is the most populated county in their district. So whenever they do an event in Paulding County, the ones at the airport have been very well attended, and they've been very, very happy with those. Carolyn, did you have something? I wanted to mention that the Chamber is a huge part of the Paulding Aerospace Alliance, and they're partnering with the Paulding Aerospace Alliance on the Air Expo. And without that partnership, it would be really a big strain on the Paulding Aerospace Alliance, on those companies to try to pull that off on their own. But the Chamber is partnering with that and making that a reality, and appreciate very much everything that the Chamber does for us. Moving on to prospects, we met, I guess it's been 2 weeks ago now, with a delegation from China that came in and talked to us about some different prospects, some different businesses that they have that they're looking for locations for. They have placed a number of businesses and companies in Alabama and Tennessee. However, they've not, as of this point, placed any in Georgia. So, this was their first visit here. They met with us, and they met with the Georgia Department of Economic Development. I'm not sure if they met with any other communities or not. The only two meetings I know of for sure was Paulding County and Georgia Department of Economic Development. So that is a very, very promising relationship that we are developing there. And I wanted to mention that relationship came out of relationships that were established between Kennesaw State University, Wellstar Hospital, and some companies in China. So that's how those prospects ended up at our front door. And it's a big testament to what Kennesaw State is doing here in our community and what Wellstar is doing here in our community. So I wanted to mention those things. The last thing I had, which I failed to put on the agenda, was we met last week with the new president of Georgia Highlands, Dr. Green. I know that Carolyn met with him as well. He has got some fantastic ideas about how to grow the Georgia Highlands campus in Paulding County. He is really wanting to reach out to the community and reach out to the existing businesses and make sure that the direction that they are going aligns with the direction of the future of Paulding County. So if you haven't had a chance to meet with Mr. Green and you would like to, please let me know, and I'd be glad to arrange that. He is really very, very interested in the Aerospace Alliance and has been asked to put on the agenda for the next meeting of the Aerospace Alliance. I also failed to mention when I was talking about the Aerospace Alliance that that group will be attending the legislative breakfast with the Georgia Innovation Center on March 3rd as well. I think pretty much every company is going to be represented down there for that day. So that's a big deal to have the Aerospace Alliance participating so heavily in a state level forum, and that speaks volumes for
Didn't they
for the mindset of those companies. Yeah.
Didn't they sponsor Shane Cooper, Executive VP with Lockheed last year at the Chamber
Yes.
luncheon speaker? I believe they were the luncheon
Yes,
sponsor.
they did.
That is correct, and
So they work closely with Lockheed too.
several of them do work very, very closely with Lockheed. But between those companies, between those really six companies, they touch just about every aerospace manufacturer. Well, everyone in the state and just about everyone in the country. It's amazing the broad number of companies that they work with. You would think that they would have one or two clients, but they have dozens and dozens and dozens of clients all across the entire country. So it's a fantastic network and resource. Any questions on any of those things that I've covered? have to go through it pretty quickly since we've got a late start today.
Blake, the one thing I just told Carol and I wanted to bring up with this workforce development and the job shadowing, a group of these aerospace are also going to be hosting students and taking them to the luncheon. So they're very involved in the community and within our school system too.
They are, and if you've never been to visit with Top Flight or AFOG or Westcog or Rare Metals or any of those companies, the technology that they have, the equipment that they have is really incredibly impressive. I was over at Wade's place last week, meeting with him on some potential expansion opportunities he's got, and taking a look at some of the stuff that he's building right now. And it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. It's space age technology for sure. And I also want to mention that through working with these companies, we're currently trying to put together a kind of an outline for an educational program that I don't know where that educational program might end up being housed, whether it be Chattahoochee Tech or Kennesaw or whoever, but there's a real opportunity to train some folks at one of the county's institutions, higher education institutions, in composites. And composites, if you look at all of the new aircraft that have been designed and approved and have gone to manufacturing over the last dozen years, pretty much all of the new aircraft are completely composite. The Honda Jet is 100% composite. Boeing 787 Dreamliner is 100% composite. The new Airbus 380 is composite. The Kestrel aircraft is composite. They're all composites. So while we still have a big industry throughout the country and throughout Georgia for metal and metal workers, the future is going to be composites and people who know how to work with composites. So there's a big opportunity there for us to get ahead of the wave on this and get an educational program set up that would provide a steady stream of workers that are educated and familiar with doing composite work. So that's an idea that was born out of the Paulding Aerospace Alliance, and that's the type of future thinking that these guys bring to the table, which I think is really important for the county.
Okay, any more questions for Blake? Okay, next agenda item is an executive session for litigation personnel and real estate. Do we need this executive session?
We do, yes, sir.
Make a motion
Got a motion going
to
in.
go in with executive session for litigation, personnel, and real estate.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Back shortly. Report, we're coming back into regular session. You need a motion to do that, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And report that the only action item in the executive session was signing of the minutes. Anything else we need to discuss this afternoon?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned.
All in favor? Aye.
Stand.